Not sure if you've been watching the news recently, but there has been a good amount of outrage about this poster put out by the Basque producers of a new animated cartoon movie called Elcano and Magellan. Elcano being the one who finished the journey as captain after not only Magellan was killed, but also Barbosa, his brother-in-law, both in the Philippines. We have not seen the film, but we are showing you the characters from their poster on screen. And well, you can pretty much see for yourself. These stereotypes are inaccurate. Lapu-Lapu appears like an evil villain. And no, he was not. He was a hero to his people, responding to a declaration of war by Magellan. He did the right thing, yet they paint him looking like the villain here. Then you have a Filipina who is googly-eyed for Magellan, who is depicted as a very handsome 20-something. Yet, we all know he was an ugly old white dude. And the Filipino prior to the Spanish did not need to take foreign husbands because they were wealthier than Magellan was. Now, this is no surprise that the Basque, or essentially the Jews, would think this way. They justified and still justify exhibiting the fruits of sanctity in conquest. So we expect no more of them. But in this age, one would think they would be at least a little sensitive to the fact that they crushed, stole from, killed, and destroyed ancient Ophir, now named after their evil king still. There is no justification for treating Ophir as lesser world citizens. And to do so in this film is an outrage indeed. No wonder many are calling for the government to ban this film. And though we do not enter politics, we support this effort, because if this film is accurately represented by this poster, it is a fraudulent narrative from everything that we see here. So what is the true story then? Glad you asked. In the next 3 videos, we will cover the way Ophir, Sheba, and Tarshish fought back and drove the Spanish out of their land initially. It would take many years for Spain to conquer the Philippines. First, the Battle of Mactan and Lapu-Lapu. And from the perspective of a Spanish historian, even right from Antonio Pigafetta's journal. The historian who traveled with Magellan and the first one to circumnavigate the globe. Now we'll read you his translated account in English by Lord Stanley of Alderley, a Brit. The funny thing is, this has been well preserved, as originals exist today in the British Museum, Yale University, and also a museum in Italy. This is the best history you can get, as it is a first-hand account of the most credible historian on record. You know, the one who was actually there, the eyewitness himself. However, this account appears pretty genuine as history and does not support the narrative propagated in this poster, indeed. Welcome to 100 Clues. The Philippines is the ancient land of gold, known as Ophir in the Bible and history. Now we're going to jump right in on this one because we have a lot to cover. So now, part 46 of our series, 100 Clues, the Philippines is Ophir. One clue at a time. This is Magellan, the dark sorcerer type looking dude. Certainly not one an ancient Ophirian lady would be swooning over, nor is there any record of such really. A Portuguese explorer sailing for Spain, he set out in search of fame and fortune. History records this as trying to find the Spice Islands. But let's test this narrative. Before embarking on this voyage, Magellan spent time in the Spice Islands with the Portuguese, who conquered both Indonesia and Malaysia in 1511, according to history, in which Magellan was there for that, but again, for the Portuguese. Thus, to say he switched sides, and he was discovering the very same lands he and Barbossa, his brother-in-law, already discovered and, it appears, conquered, is rather disingenuous. So we can narrow this down. Magellan was not headed to the Spice Islands of Indonesia, nor Malaysia. He was going to Ophir and Tarshish, yes, according to his own words, to get gold and spices because he knew they had an abundance of both. We know this because his brother-in-law, whom he sailed with for Portugal, and Barbossa sailed with Magellan later for Spain, recorded what the Philippines was in those days, the land of gold, whom he called the Lucos, or better identified as Ilocos or Ilcanos, actually. He listed their resources in his previous trip, in his journal, and Magellan had a copy of this journal from Barbossa. Now, Magellan scratched out Lucos and wrote in the margin Ophir and Tarshish. See, Magellan knew the research of Columbus, so did the King of Spain, and he had been in that part of the world for the Portuguese already. And he knew full well the Philippines was Ophir. So understanding this background, let's jump into the story. These are the actual words from Pigafetta's journal witnessing this account. And there is no other expert on the matter as they weren't there. So no one can really dispute this. Friday, the 26th of April. Zula, who was one of the principal men or chiefs of the island of Mactan. Notice it's Mactan, not Mactan. Nor is there a C in ancient Philippine languages. So Pigafetta recorded it accurately. In the next video, you will see why that matters. Sent to the captain, Magellan, a son of his with 2 goats, to make a present of them, and to say that if he did not do all that he had promised, the cause of that was another chief named Lapu-Lapu, who would not in any way obey the King of Spain, and it prevented him from doing so. So Lapu-Lapu sent this reluctant messenger with a message. Who are you, Magellan, that I must obey you? You have no authority in my country. And he did not. Was he wrong for doing that after Magellan demanded tribute for no reason at all, as he did nothing to be deserving for such, nor had the King of Spain, whom the Philippines didn't even know? This whole colonial narrative is among the most evil ways of thinking. It is more corrupt than any thinking we've ever heard. At its core, it is the worst kind of racism which brands another people as lesser beings, which means they can now steal from you, kill you, and destroy you. Oh wait, we all know whose fruits those are, don't we? But that if the captain would send him the following night 1 boat full of men to give him assistance, he would fight and subdue his rival. So this messenger was turning against Lapu-Lapu. Or was he? Are we sure this was not a trap set by Lapu-Lapu? Because he was much smarter than given credit. In fact, he proves to be, in our opinion, much smarter than Magellan. Now let's see what happened, and in comments, you tell us who was smarter, Lapu-Lapu or Magellan. On the receipt of this message, the captain decided to go himself with 3 boats. We entreated him much not to go to this enterprise in person, but he, as a good shepherd, wanted to go kill people. Oh, sorry, I didn't say that. Would not abandon his flock. Oh, that good shepherd who steals, kills, and destroys. Yeah. So Magellan was going to respond to Lapu-Lapu himself. Guess what? Trap sprung. His own ego led to his own downfall, which is his own fault and no one else's. We set out from Cebu at midnight. We were 60 men armed with corselets and helmets. There were with us the Christian king, the prince, and some of the chief men, and many others divided among 20 or 30 balangay. FYI, that's 20 to 30 Philippine balangay ships, and we know these can be as long as 80 feet. According to Pigafetta, no, not just, because we know this because they've been unearthed in Butuan, 5 of them, and some as long as 80 feet and dated to 300 A.D., 1,200 years before the Spanish. Imagine that. We arrived at Mactan 3 hours before daylight. The captain, before attacking, wished to attempt gentle means. Yes, because that was his way. Demand tribute, burn down your village, kill you. Those are gentle means, of course. And sent on shore the Moorish merchant to tell those islanders who were of the party of Lapu-Lapu that if they would recognize the Christian king as their sovereign, oh, that sounds reasonable, just accept his religion and obey the king of Spain. Why? They didn't even know the guy. And pay us the tribute. Gee, that sounds reasonable, right? Wrong. Which had been asked. So, none of this makes any sense whatsoever. If you want to visit a country and become their friend, befriend them, you would treat them differently than this, wouldn't you? But see, when you think about what they're doing, if they came to your house and demand that you pay them money, obey their boss, and convert to their religion, or they'll threaten you, to fight you, to even kill you. What exactly does that make them? Well, it makes them a thief, an extortionist, a mafia thug, and perhaps a murderer. Whose fruits are those? Not Yahuwah's. The captain would become their friend. Otherwise, we should prove how our lances wounded. Nice threat. Well, since you put it that way, let's see what Lapu-Lapu had to say about that. The islanders were not terrified. They replied that if we had lances, so also had they, although only of reeds and wood hardened with fire. Now that sounds like a Filipino manner even to this day. They asked, however, that we should not attack them by night, but wait for daylight, because they were expecting reinforcements and would be in greater number. This they said with cunning to excite us to attack them by night, supposing that we were ready. But they wished this because they had dug ditches between their houses and the beach, and they hoped that we should fall into them. Yep, seems like one side of this story actually has a plan for battle, yet the other, well, you decide. We, however, waited for daylight. We then leaped into the water up to our thighs, for on account of the shallow water and the rocks, the boats could not come close to the beach. Oh, you have been tricked already. You are out of your element, a brilliant military strategy. This is no absent-minded native they were dealing with in any sense, and to say so, well, proves to be pretty ridiculous. And we had to cross 2 good crossbow shots through the water before reaching it. Well, that's brilliant. We were 49 in number, and that is arrogance. The other 11 remained in charge of the boats. When we reached land, we found the islanders 1,500 in number. Oops. Can we call slipsies and takebacks now? Maybe we didn't quite mean that. Magellan already lost this battle based on the conditions in which he anticipated none of this. Terrible. Underestimating the enemy. One of the worst military snafus. Drawn up in 3 squadrons. There it is, military strategy yet again. What's Magellan's? Oh, just arrogance. Ouch. That's gonna hurt. They came down upon us with terrible shouts. 2 squadrons attacking us on the flanks, and the 3rd in front. Again, military language here. The captain then divided his men in 2 bands. Our musketeers and crossbowmen fired for half an hour from a distance, but did nothing. Since the bullets and arrows, though they passed through their shields made of thin wood, and perhaps wounded their arms, yet did not stop them. Oops, they were prepared for that too. Why? Because these aren't natives wearing loincloths. This is Ophir and Sheba they are messing with, and they are a sophisticated people who could read and write and knew military strategy according to this Spanish account. The captain shouted not to fire, but he was not listened to. The islanders, seeing that the shots of our guns did them little or no harm, would not retire, but shouted more loudly and springing from one side to the other to avoid our shots. They, at the same time, drew nearer to us, throwing arrows, javelins, spears hardened with fire, stones, and even mud, so that we could hardly defend ourselves. Some of them cast lances, pointed with iron, at the captain general. I thought they didn't have iron. Oh, looks like they did. More sophisticated indeed. Note, Ophir traded with China and its neighbors, so the chance they only had archaic weapons is highly unlikely. We do believe Pigafetta downplays them, as he is a Jesuit, and that is what Jesuits have always done. He then, in order to disperse this multitude and to terrify them, sent some of our men to set fire to their houses. But this rendered them more ferocious. Surprise! They are winning the battle. Why would they be deterred by your witchcraft of distraction? Some of them ran to the fire, which consumed 20 or 30 houses, and there killed 2 of our own men. The rest came down upon us with greater fury. They perceived that our bodies were defended, but that the legs were exposed, and they aimed at them principally. Oops, further military strategy. The captain had his right leg pierced by a poisoned arrow, on which account he gave orders to retreat by degrees. But almost all of our men took to precipitate flight, so that there remained hardly 6 or 8 of us with him. We were oppressed by the lances and stones which the enemy hurled at us, and we could make no more resistance. The bombards which we had in the boats were of no assistance to us, for the shoal water kept them too far from the beach. brilliant military strategy. We went thither, retreating little by little and still fighting, and we had already got to the distance of a crossbow shot from the shore, having the water up to our knees, the islanders following and picking up again the spears which they had already cast. And they threw the same spear 5 or 6 times. As they knew the captain, they aimed specifically at him, and twice they knocked the helmet off his head. He, with a few of us, like a good knight, remained at his post without choosing to retreat further. Thus we fought for more than an hour. Now that part is doubtful, that they lasted that long. 1500 to, 39 or whatever? No armor is that good. None. Until an Indian succeeded in thrusting a cane lance into the captain's face. He then, being irritated, pierced the Indian's breast with his lance and left it in his body. And trying to draw his sword, he was unable to draw it more than halfway, on account of a javelin wound which he had received in the right arm. The enemy, seeing this, all rushed against him, and one of them, with a great sword like a great smeter, gave him a great blow on the left leg, which brought the captain down on his face. Then the Indians threw themselves upon him and ran him through with lances and all the other arms which they had, so that they deprived of life, get this, our mirror, light, comfort, and true guide. That's a nice Kabbalistic description there. Whilst the Indians were thus overpowering him, several times he turned round towards us to see if we were already in safety, as though his obstinate fight had no other object than to give an opportunity for the retreat of his men. We who fought to extremity, and who were covered with wounds, seeing that he was dead, proceeded to the boats, which were on the point of going away. This fatal battle was fought on the 27th of April of 1521, on a Saturday, a day which the captain had chosen himself, because he had a special devotion to it. There perished with him 8 of our men, and 4 of the Indians, who had become Christians. We had also many wounded, amongst whom I must reckon myself. The enemy lost only 15 men. That's out of 1,500. This was no contest. The Spanish were completely unprepared and completely underestimated Ophir, and that was not very smart. So what happened here? Magellan got cocky and treated the Filipinos with his racist superiority, and they proved they were actually the ones who were superior in this battle. Now, we will be uploading next Spanish captains killed in a second event of Filipinos, again outwitting the Spanish. And then the great naval battle which Spain lost, which drove them out of Versailles. Oh, this is good, and a history that many have never heard taught in schools. Yet this is Spanish history, written by the Spanish historian, who witnessed this firsthand. How is that even the Spanish do not seem to know this account? No one can tell this story without Pigafetta's account, at least not accurately and truthfully, and we doubt very seriously that this animated film is going to do that. As we keep saying and supporting over and over again, there is no debating the Philippines is the land of gold in all of history. It is time this knowledge be restored. For those about to comment in ignorance, yep, we always get them, we dare you to watch Solomon's Gold series by The God Culture, the original channel to prove the Philippines is in fact Ophir and the Garden of Eden. Even here, we are breaking these into sound bites and clear points. But watch how all 100 clues tie together, and this series will blow you away. Thank you for watching 100 Clues. Please subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't forget to click the bell and like us on our new Facebook, The God Culture, space original. If you wish to skip ahead, go to the God Culture YouTube channel and watch our Solomon's Gold series in English or Tagalog. There will be a link on the next screen. We can know this truth and be confident this belongs to the Philippines, and no one can disprove it. Until next time.